You do not bring a medium bomber down to mast height. Not in 1942, not in the Southwest Pacific, not against the Imperial Japanese Navy. That is the rule. The unwritten law every American pilot absorbs the moment he feels the humid air of Port Moresby or the stifling heat of Milne Bay. You keep your altitude. You stay above the flak. You drop your bombs from a safe distance and trust the odds. Even the enemy believes this rule is unbreakable. Japanese convoy commanders laugh at the clumsy American bomb runs that fall wide of their ships. They joke about the accidents, the engine failures, the short-winged B-26 Marauders that American air crews nervously call flying coffins. They dismiss the U.S. Army Air Forces as inexperienced, unrefined, prone to reckless ideas that only guarantee their own losses. To the Japanese, low-level attacks are not a tactic. They are a mistake, a foolish gamble, a sign that the Americans do not understand proper air warfare. But in the closing months of 1942, the skies over New Guinea begin to change. A young pilot named Jim Muri finds himself staring at a Japanese convoy, the sun blazing off steel hulls, the air shimmering with heat. He pulls his bomber down from the clouds, feels the altimeter unwinding, and aims for the deck. The rule is about to break, and the Pacific will never be the same. Jim Muri is 26 years old, but the war will age him far faster than the calendar ever could. He grew up in Montana, where the winters were long and the work was hard, and the sky stretched endlessly above fields of wheat. Those open skies carved something into him, a steadiness, a calm, a willingness to push through fear because every chore, every mile, every storm demanded it. When he joins the 22nd Bomb Group, he quickly stands out, not because he is loud or bold or larger than life. Quite the opposite. He is composed, methodical, a pilot whose hands stay steady on the controls even when the airframe shudders and gauges jump. A man whose instinct is not to flee danger but to understand it, then push through it. In early 1942, the 22nd Bomb Group becomes one of the first B-26 Marauder units deployed to the Pacific. The aircraft is fast, faster than any American medium bomber before it, but unforgiving. Short wings make takeoffs deadly. High landing speeds kill inexperienced crews. Its weight makes every violent maneuver a test of muscle and nerve. And yet, this is the weapon America needs, because the Japanese advance threatens New Guinea, and beyond New Guinea lies Australia. The stakes are continental. Every convoy that reaches Lae or Buna strengthens Tokyo's foothold. Every crate of ammunition unloaded in the jungle keeps the offensive alive. American bombers must stop them, but there is a problem. Bombs dropped from altitude rarely hit maneuvering ships. The Pacific's stormy skies ruin aim. Japanese captains twist their vessels in evasive arcs at the first hint of danger. The old rules are failing, so pilots begin experimenting. They drop lower, then lower still, until some arrive at the edge of madness, 50, 60, 80 feet above the waves, skimming the surface, racing straight toward enemy steel. The Japanese call these early attempts amateurish. They believe no medium bomber can survive that approach. They trust their anti-aircraft guns, their disciplined gunners, their tightly escorted convoys. But in the jungles of New Guinea, in the sweltering heat of forward airstrips carved out of grass and mud, men like Jim Muri study the situation with cold clarity. If you cannot hit from above, you must attack from below. And so, in late 1942, when intelligence reports a convoy slipping along the Huon Gulf under heavy escort, Muri is among the pilots chosen to strike it. He climbs into his Marauder, feels the sweat already forming beneath his flight suit, and stares down the runway ahead. The engines spool up, the airframe vibrates, the moment of decision arrives. He will go low, lower than caution, lower than training manuals advise, lower than the Japanese believe possible. He pushes the throttles forward. the wheels leave the earth, and the most dangerous run of his life begins. The coastline appears first, a jagged green wall rising from the shimmering water of the Huon Gulf. Then the shapes emerge through the haze, steel-gray silhouettes, 3 transports, 2 escorts, a formation built to survive the air war of 1942. Muri brings the bomber down 200 feet, 150, 100. The altimeter needle dips so low it feels like a dare. The B-26 shudders as he levels off at wave-top height. Spray buffets the underside of the fuselage. The cockpit fills with vibration, noise, tension. This is not flying. This is knife-edge survival. His bombardier calls out the range, 4,000 yards. Japanese lookouts spot the incoming bomber. Voices rise, arms point, deck guns swing in practiced arcs. 3,000 yards. The first puffs of black smoke erupt in the sky. The Japanese fire early. They expect the American to climb before the run. It is what high-level bombers always do, what doctrine demands. But Muri does not climb. 1,500 yards. Flak bursts closer now, sharp concussions hammering the airframe. The bomber jolts. Instruments flicker. Shrapnel clatters against the left wing like a bucket of gravel thrown against metal. The ship ahead begins to maneuver. It cuts hard to port, showing its broadside briefly. Its anti-aircraft guns flash in rapid, disciplined sequence. 2,000 yards. The cockpit shakes violently. Wind howls through a new rupture in the right side of the nose, a spray of glass crystals across the bombardier's lap. But Muri's hands stay steady on the yoke. 1,800 yards. The Japanese commander believes the American has misjudged the approach. No bomber can survive a straight, unwavering line under this density of fire. He expects a pull-up, a desperate climb, a retreat. But Muri does not retreat. He pushes lower. 1,500 yards. Tracers whip past the cockpit canopy, streaks of orange light that seem to bend the air itself. 2 tear across the left engine cowling. 1 slams into the fuselage and punches through the radio compartment, but the B-26 holds together. Muri can see faces on the deck now, helmeted gunners, wide, astonished eyes, a blur of motion as men brace behind shields. 1,200 yards. The smell of cordite fills the cockpit, a scent carried on the slipstream from the Japanese guns. The bomber is now so low that the ship's bow wave nearly reaches the altitude of his wheels. 900 yards. The bombardier shouts over the intercom, voice cracking with adrenaline. They are locked on target. The ship cannot evade now. It is too late for it to turn, too late for it to run. 700 yards. Bomb bay doors open. The change in airflow slams the plane with sudden drag. The Marauder dips, then steadies. 500 yards. Muri holds the line. He can almost feel the heat of the enemy's guns. Bomb release. 4 500-pounders drop cleanly. There is no time to watch them hit. No time to confirm the strike. At this range, at this altitude, a pilot has one priority: survival. Muri slams the throttles forward, banking hard to starboard, skimming so low that the bomber's right wingtip nearly kisses the surface of the sea. A thunderous roar erupts behind him. 1 bomb strikes just short of the hull and skips. Like a stone across a pond, it bounces once, twice, then punches straight into the ship's side above the waterline. The detonation is immediate. A fireball swells outward. A shockwave ripples through the water. The Japanese transport groans, steel bending, plates rupturing. But Muri cannot look back for long. The escorts are already reacting. A destroyer pivots violently, guns swinging toward him. Its deck erupts in flame as rapid-fire cannons spit arcs of tracers. Muri yanks the bomber lower still, 50 feet, 40. The B-26 skims the surface like a predator. The destroyer gives chase, closing the gap, its guns tracking. Muri glances over his shoulder and sees the bow cutting through the waves, the ship seemingly intent on ramming him. He dives the Marauder even lower, Spray erupts against the fuselage. The sea becomes a blur of blue and white beneath him. For a moment, the Japanese gunners overshoot. Their shells pass just overhead, ripping the air instead of the bomber. But then, a new sound, a harsh metallic clang. Then another. Rounds slam into the tail assembly. Control cables vibrate under sudden strain. The bomber lurches. Muri fights to hold direction. His gunners return fire. The twin 50s hammer away, brass casings clattering inside the fuselage, the guns spitting defiance at the destroyer's bridge. The Japanese gunners flinch. Their aim falters. The Marauder gains a sliver of distance. But this is not over. Another transport looms ahead, trying to complete an evasive pattern. Smoke billows from the first ship, now crippled and listing. The air is thick with debris and flame. Muri must climb or crash. He chooses climb. The B-26 claws upward, engines screaming. 80 feet, 100, 120. But climbing exposes him to the very thing Japanese gunners excel at, tracking a rising target. Shells burst around the bomber. One detonation rocks the right wing so hard that Muri's head smashes against the canopy frame. The world spins for a moment. He tastes blood. He shakes it off. The bomber stabilizes. Below him, the second transport tries to weave out of the kill zone, but it is too late. Another B-26, flying just behind Muri, begins its own run, diving toward the ship in a steep, suicidal arc. Muri watches it commit. He cannot help them. He can only witness. The second bomber roars past him, then another, and another. The sky fills with American steel. The Japanese convoy is now under full attack. The convoy erupts into chaos. A second B-26 thunders in at barely 60 feet, engines bellowing like a pair of enraged beasts. Its bombs drop at point-blank range. One strikes home. A column of fire surges upward from the stern of the transport it targeted. Japanese sailors scramble. Some man their stations. Some run for hoses. Some simply freeze, stunned at the audacity of these attacks. For months, they believed American medium bombers lacked the nerve to fly this low. Now they are being attacked by wave after wave, each closer, each tighter, each more precise. Muri circles around, keeping low, keeping fast, lungs burning, adrenaline surging in a way he has never felt before. Below him, the water churns with wreckage. Burning oil slicks spread like black veins across the turquoise sea. The smell of smoke and gasoline carries upward, thick and choking. A destroyer suddenly darts across the battlefield, guns firing in every direction. Its captain is trying to shield the remaining transports, weaving between them, daring the Americans to get close. But daring them does nothing, because the Americans are already close, too close. Another B-26 cuts in low along the destroyer's port side, so low that the ship's forward guns cannot depress enough to target it. The bomber's crew rakes the deck with .50 caliber fire, sweeping gun crews from their posts. Tracers stitch across steel plating, sparks fly, bodies fall. The destroyer jerks off course, momentarily blind, momentarily vulnerable. That is all the Marauders need. A third bomber drops 2 bombs alongside the ship. Both skip, both strike. Twin blasts hammer the destroyer's hull, one near the bridge, one near the engine rooms. Smoke billows upward. The ship shudders violently, slowing, listing. The Japanese defensive line is collapsing. Muri watches the battle unfold moment by moment, his mind forced to process the impossible at lightning speed. He sees a fourth bomber dive straight into a curtain of anti-aircraft fire, taking a hit in the left engine, flames spitting from the nacelle. Yet the crew holds course, delivers its bombs, and barely clears the transport's foremast on exit. He sees a fifth Marauder rising out of a smokescreen, one landing gear half extended from battle damage, wobbling, barely holding together. He sees courage in forms he never imagined, and he sees something else: fear. For the first time in the war, the Japanese look afraid. Gunners hesitate at their posts. Officers shout contradictory orders. Ships turn the wrong way, toward danger, not away from it, because a single instant of confusion in a convoy means death. Bombs fall, guns roar, the sea swallows everything. A massive explosion flashes at the edge of the formation. One of the transports has taken a direct hit to its forward holds, where fuel drums and ammunition were stored. The entire front half of the ship disappears in a thunderous detonation. A geyser of fire and water shoots skyward. Pieces of steel the size of trucks arc through the air before crashing back into the sea. The shockwave hits Muri's bomber even at a distance, rattling the cockpit. He steadies. His radio crackles with frantic voices. Gunners calling damage, navigators reporting smoke trails, pilots announcing hits. Through the chaos, one fact becomes clear: the Japanese convoy is breaking apart. Some ships drift, dead in the water. Some try to flee, zigzagging wildly. Some burn from stem to stern, but none, not one, is unscathed. Muri banks hard, repositioning for another pass if needed. But as he circles, he sees something unmistakable. The enemy ships that can still move are fleeing. They are no longer holding formation. They are no longer maintaining defensive integrity. They are running singly, desperately, frantically up the coast. And that is when the realization hits. The rule is gone, broken forever, shattered by men who dared to fly where doctrine said they shouldn't. The Japanese believed American medium bombers were clumsy. They believed their anti-aircraft guns were invincible. They believed low-level attacks were madness. But the firestorm below proves otherwise. The transports are finished. The escorts are crippled. The sea is littered with wreckage. And this is only the beginning, because this attack, this single day, reveals a truth that will reshape the war in the Pacific. Muri speaks into his intercom, voice hoarse but steady. "We're clear," pulling away. He gains altitude inch by inch, the battered bomber groaning with every foot climbed. Below him, the Japanese ships continue to burn. Above him, sunlight streaks through tropical clouds, golden and blinding. And in that moment, a new style of warfare is born. If you find this kind of forgotten history as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of courage and ingenuity deserve to be told. And by subscribing, you help us ensure they aren't forgotten. The flight home is a contest of endurance. The Marauder is wounded, holes in the fuselage, jagged tears in the tail, a cracked canopy that whistles with every mile. Fuel sloshes unevenly in battered tanks. 2 gauges are dead. The left engine runs hot, its temperature needle flirting with the red line, yet Muri holds course. Below, the New Guinea coastline unfurls, endless jungle, winding rivers, thick green shadows. There is no safe place to crash here, no friendly outpost, no chance of rescue if the bomber goes down. His crew speaks in low, steady tones. They conserve their strength, they watch their instruments, they trust him. The final ridgeline approaches, a jagged spine of earth marking the last barrier before home. Clouds coil around the peaks, the air grows turbulent. Muri eases the throttles forward, coaxing every remaining ounce of power from the engines. The bomber climbs, 20 feet, 40, 70. The ridge rushes closer, 90 feet, 100. The engines scream. The airframe trembles as if pleading for mercy. 120 feet. They clear the ridge by less than 30 feet. The crew exhales, a single shared breath they didn't know they were holding. Beyond the mountains lies Port Moresby, shimmering under the afternoon sun. Its runways are rough, scarred from constant use, but they are home. Muri lines up. The landing gear groans as it extends. Smoke trails behind the left engine. The bomber dips, wavers, corrects. He touches down hard. The tires screech. Dust erupts. The Marauder shudders violently as its wounded frame absorbs the impact. But it stays intact. It stays upright, and it rolls to a stop. When the crew climbs out, their legs shake, not from fear but from the raw physical toll of the mission. Ground crews approach the aircraft and freeze. The holes in the fuselage, the shredded tail, the cracked canopy, the scorched engine. One mechanic whispers, "How in hell did this thing stay in the air?" Jim Muri doesn't answer. He just looks toward the distant horizon where wreckage still burns on the sea. He knows the truth. Low-level attacks are no longer experiments. They are no longer gambles. They are the future. And that future will tear the Japanese convoy system apart. What the Japanese commanders do not know, not yet, is that the attack they just endured is only the opening act of a new kind of warfare. Because the Americans have learned something that cannot be unlearned. Low altitude is the great equalizer. Altitude favored the defender. Altitude protected the convoy. Altitude made American bombers predictable. But down at 50 feet? Down where the sea spray hits your fuselage? Down where tracers fly past your canopy like molten rain? Down there, the defenders lose their advantage, and the Japanese will pay for underestimating it. In the months that follow, the 22nd Bomb Group, the 3rd Attack Group, and later the 38th begin refining low-level attack doctrine. Engineers tweak bomb fuses to detonate at the perfect moment. Pilots learn how to approach from the sun, from the coastline, or under cloud cover. Navigators map every inlet and coastal curve. Gunners time their bursts to silence enemy guns at critical seconds. Skip bombing, the technique that sank ships by bouncing bombs across the surface, becomes brutally effective. It turns medium bombers into anti-shipping predators, and the Japanese watch their convoys die. At Leh, at Salamaua, at Buna, at Finschhafen, at the Dampier Strait. Then, in March 1943, comes the strike that shakes the Imperial Japanese Navy down to its core, the Battle of the Bismarck Sea. 8 transports, 8 destroyers, a major reinforcement push meant to stabilize the New Guinea front. They are annihilated. Every single transport is sunk. 4 destroyers are lost. More than 2,800 Japanese soldiers die. The rest drift for days before being picked off by Allied PT boats or aircraft. The Japanese command is stunned. They scramble to understand what has changed. How a force they once mocked, American medium bombers, now tear convoys apart with surgical precision. Reports flood Tokyo, bombs that skip like stones, aircraft flying impossibly low, attacks timed at angles we cannot counter, transports sinking before defensive patterns can be formed. The Japanese never again attempt a major daylight convoy through contested waters near New Guinea. They switch to night movements, smaller formations, and desperate scatter tactics. But it does not matter. The tide has turned. The Americans own the daylight. They own the coastline. They own the skies. And they own them because men like Jim Muri broke the rule, broke the expectations, and proved that survival belonged not to those who followed doctrine, but to those who evolved beyond it. When the war finally ends, the Pacific falls quiet. The jungles of New Guinea swallow the rusting wrecks. The sea reclaims the twisted steel of transports and destroyers. The skies return to the birds instead of the bombers. But the names remain. Names like the men of the 22nd Bomb Group, the Montana farm kid who flew at wave-top height, the gunners who held their lines under walls of fire, the navigators who threaded bombers between peaks and storms, the bombardiers who dropped at ranges so close they could see the rivets on enemy hulls. Men like First Lieutenant Jim Muri, who returned home after the war, worked as a commercial pilot, raised a family, and lived a long life far from the jungles where he'd once risked everything. He rarely spoke about the terror. He almost never mentioned the fear. But when asked, years later, about those low-level attacks, he said something simple. You flew low because it worked. You flew low because the men next to you were counting on it, and you hoped you'd get home. That is the quiet truth of the Pacific Air War, not the loud glory of heroism, but the steady resolve of men who understood the cost and flew anyway. Some of the pilots he flew with did not make it home. Some were shot down over water or jungle and vanished without graves. Some burned in their aircraft before help could reach them. Their names are recorded in unit rosters, in faded mission logs, in letters to families that ended simply, "He gave everything he had." And today their legacy lives on in a simple fact of history. The Japanese convoy system, once the backbone of their advance, was broken by American aircrews who refused to accept the rules of the war they inherited. They changed those rules, they shattered them, and in doing so, they changed the course of the Pacific. To this day, historians mark 1942 and 1943 as the years when Allied air power seized the initiative, the years when convoys stopped arriving, the years when supply lines collapsed, the years when the war began to swing the other way. And at the center of that turning point are the marauder crews, the flying coffin pilots who took a flawed, dangerous, unforgiving aircraft and turned it into one of the deadliest tools of coastal warfare ever conceived. So as you listen to this story, remember the men of the 22nd Bomb Group. Remember their courage, their skill, their willingness to dive into walls of fire for a chance at survival and victory. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm that this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that Jim Muri and the men of the 22nd Bomb Group do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.